Now that I have your attention, I'm Doug Hodgkin. I'm a member of the board of the Androscoggin Historical Society. The president and the treasurer are not here, but we welcome you. We have a vice president. Well, we should be there. I have an attendance sheet going around. We'd appreciate it if you could sign it and indicate at least your email so that we can alert you to future programs and other news of the society. We won't sell it or give it to anybody else. It's just for the Historical Society. This is a free lecture, but we welcome any contributions you would like to make. There's a box near the door, near the elevator, that you could show your appreciation there. I don't think there's anything else to do. We'll simply turn it over to the program chair. The vice president is automatically the program chair according to our bylaws. So it gives the vice president something to do. So I'll turn it over to Bev Robbins to introduce our speaker.
Everybody knows Daniel Buck, and he's been involved in the sale and appraisal of antiques and fine art since the early 70s. He started his career in the family antiques business as a very young man. He's a leading authority on 18th and 19th century Americana, as well as on Shaker items and paintings from the 19th and 20th century. There are 3 celebrities in Maine: Stephen King, Patrick Dempsey, and Dan Buck. But insiders know of his
Don't
work.
ask for my autograph, please. It's not going to be worth anything.
Insiders know of his work with fundraising for many nonprofits, for museums, and historical societies. I was particularly impressed that he was involved in the USS Saratoga Museum. Since I spent 15 or 20 years in Jacksonville, that was the home port of the Sarah. He's a cabinet maker, a writer, a fundraiser, an appraiser, an auctioneer, a businessman, and tonight he's ours.
Oh boy. You know, I have to be honest, when I was doing the Antiques Roadshow, I used to have people come up to me all the time and ask for my autograph, and I go, no, I'm sorry, it's not worth anything. Oh, first of all, I'd like to thank you for inviting me back. We've had a couple of issues in the past where we missed, and that's a whole long story, but thank you for having me back.
I know, it was 2 years ago.
Was it 2 years ago? It seems a little longer than that. The other thing is thank you for using the old picture of me, because it makes me feel younger when I see that in the paper. I've got to get new PR shots one of these days, but no, I appreciate you asking me to come back, and I always enjoyed giving talks and giving lectures. We still travel a lot and give talks and appraisal events all over the country, and you know, it's really been fun because no matter where you go, what you do, it's always something different. You never see the same thing twice. You never talk about the same thing twice. You're really in a situation where it's always just fresh ground. And even if, you know, when I travel, we're doing an appraisal event next weekend at a museum in Rhode Island. I've been doing it for 13 years, and when we go down there this year, it's at a museum, a 17th century house museum. And I will guarantee you there will be people and things that I've never seen before. And that's one of the fun things about this business, is you never see the same things twice, usually. Most cases when you do appraisal events especially. It's been enjoyable. It's been nice. I've been here in Maine now for 9 years. I've gotten to know a lot of the people here in Maine that are dealers and collectors, and it's been honestly, it's been fun. It's the only word I can use. Doing the business and helping people, and really is, to be honest with you, it's my mission field in life, is to help people. We do not buy anything. I refuse to buy anything as an auctioneer because I think it's unethical. I think it's a conflict of interest. So we don't buy anything at all, and we just help people. And could I make a whole lot more money the other way? Yeah, I could, but I don't like doing it, and I won't do it while I'm an auctioneer. But we just, because of the amount of things we've seen, boy, there's been times when it's like, I want that for myself. And you just can't buy it, you know, I just don't buy it, so. But yeah, it's been It's been an interesting 40 years. I started auctioneering back in 1975, and it's actually now 43 years. I can still remember the very first time I got in front of an auction, up on the auction podium. I thought I'd shake bad now. Boy, I shook bad that day. But it was fun. You know, it's really opened up a great deal of doors. I've been called internationally as an expert witness on fine art cases, which is, to me, I'm one of only about 4 or 5 people in the country who've been called internationally. And that's an amazing, to me, it's humbling, because I look and go, really? I'm just an appraiser, I'm just an auctioneer. I've never understood why people look at that, you know, in the Antiques Roadshow as celebrity. I'm just an appraiser and an auctioneer, and I'm helping people. And I enjoy it, I really do. But we've had some instances in the last year or two that we've been very fortunate to help clients with. I was mentioning to someone earlier here about a Civil War autograph album that we had about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And it was the best Civil War autograph, and it came from a local estate, best Civil War autograph album that had ever come on the market. And it set a world's record at $55,000. The Levi's blue jeans that we just sold several months ago for almost $100,000. We sold a Japanese sword recently, a Japanese tanto. It's a small knife, and that was rather a surprise, because if you saw this knife, you'd swear it was brand spanking new. It had a brand new handle and a brand new sheath, new meaning 20th century. And I tried to get a number of Japanese specialists to tell me about it, and they wouldn't, but they wanted to come see it. Okay, I had one gentleman that drove up from New York City. Okay, I had another guy from Toronto. All right, this is interesting. It's a brand new sheath that looks brand new. So I put a very conservative estimate on it. And after it sold for $62,000, the gentleman that owned it told me that his uncle brought it back from Japan, fighting World War II, and that they used to play with it all the time. And this is an instance that I like to use and tell people about regularly, because of the fact that people don't always realize what they have in their homes. If you've lived with it for your whole life, if you've enjoyed it, it came down from grandma. You know, sometimes people just don't understand what they have, which is why I call this my mission field, because I enjoy helping people. We go out regularly just to meet with people and help them identify what they have. And that's one of the fun things, is when we do these appraisal events. We're actually going to be in Tucson, Arizona the second weekend in January. We will be in Yuma, Arizona the last of January, and we're doing one in Laughlin, Nevada in February that they've hired us to go around and do for them. And just to be able to help people. I've seen some amazing things on some of these appraisal events that you would never expect. One of the best pieces of stoneware I've had, Bennington, Vermont, came from a woman in Yuma, Arizona, that their family brought with them by wagon train in the 1860s when they went west, and it's been in the family ever since. Great story, great piece, you know, so it makes it fun. You know, it's the one thing that I like to do is just be able to engage people, to be able to bring out the stories, because a lot of times people may not know the story, they may not know about the piece, and to me that's as much fun also, is just be able to give them a little bit of a history about what they have and what they, you know, what they may have. All of a sudden my phone started to buzz in my pocket. Nobody ever calls me. All of a sudden I'm doing a talk, the phone starts to buzz. But is there anything in particular that you wanted me to talk on tonight? I mean, what I will say to you is, if you have any questions at any time, don't hesitate to stop me, ask questions. I prefer that. Yes, sir.
I started collecting and selling antiques as a young man.
Right.
And I knew that if I bought good things, they would always increase in value. And then one day when I got gray hair, I could sell them and retire on all the money that I made. Even if you watch Antiques Roadshow, you see that even the finest bench-built 17th, 18th, and 19th century, mostly furniture,
Right.
has plummeted in value. So my retirement will happen in about 150 years. My question is, what would need to change? What would need to happen in order for all of those wonderful handmade pieces regained their value, other than all of the IKEA furniture falling apart?
I talk about this a lot because virtually every day I have a parent or grandparent walk through my door and look at me and say, my kids and my grandkids don't want this. I have professed, like you, I have professed my whole life that if you read good investment magazines up until 10 years ago, they will tell you the best investments, long term, will always be fine art and antiques. 10 years ago that changed. What you found is over 8 years, the middle income household their middle household income went down. Well, the prices of everything went up. Now you add to that, because of that, more than 60% of all Americans have $1,000 or less in their savings. Add to that, within the last 6 months, for the first time ever in this country, we have over $1 trillion of private credit card debt in this country. Add to that, used to be when we used to go out looking all the time, you'd have every antique shop, every auction to try to find what you were looking for. Now I can go online and find anything you want. Add to that, we have an aging population that their kids and grandkids don't want anything. So it really has been a perfect storm. In your lifetime and in my lifetime, you're never going to see it come back, and I will bet my life on it, because the next generation doesn't care. It's going to take a couple of generations before people start to look back and say, wow, I remember going to grandma's house. The biggest difference that I find is I had a personal connection to my grandparents and to my great-grandparents, and to history that these kids don't have. They've been completely disconnected by using their phones, by, you know, sitting across the room and texting each other rather than talking. I don't think we're ever going to see antiques. Our collections, I mean, I've got a phenomenal collection of early American pressed glass. Exactly. It's like I might as well go out and use it for target practice, you know, because it's just not, unless, that's the one thing I will say that, and this is why I like what I do now, is if you have something that's completely unique, rare, and unusual, that's very rare, you can still get a good price for it. People will fight over it. There's a flask right over there in the cabinet that's from New London, Connecticut, and I sold one recently for $7,000 because it's a rare flask. Every other flask like it from the 18th and 19th centuries, $20, $30, maybe $50, you're not going to get that much for them. But it's a rare, unique, and unusual, and that's why I kind of like what we're doing now. I used to do a lot more general auctions, general household auctions, and I don't anymore. I like to do just fine art and antique auctions, because you can reach out to the world. One of our auctions recently, we had bidders from 17 countries bidding online at our auction. You have to do that in order to get anywhere near what you used to get for a price. I had a beautiful, and you'll appreciate this, I had a beautiful 1780s tilt top table. Beautiful tea table. I used to get $6,000 to $8,000 for those at auction all day long. It sold for $750. Nobody wanted it. That's just the way this market is. So in our lifetime, the collection that we've kept and the things that we've done, you know, that investment's gone away for the most part. And so how can we turn it around? Unless you can get these kids, this next generation, next couple of generations, to change how they look at life and how they look at antiques, etc., it's not going to happen.
The one other thing I think may be a reason is that magazines are really struggling,
Right.
and generally antiques dealers don't advertise in magazines. People who make new furniture advertise in magazines, and so they don't push antiques.
Social media is the only, I very rarely, I will advertise in the antiques newspapers, the big antiques newspapers when I do auctions. I'll do full page spreads in color and everything else, because there's still dealers and collectors that get those. But the general antiques magazines, the fine art magazines, they all have online versions. And most of the people now don't subscribe to the paper, they'll get it handheld. You got things like Facebook, you've got, I mean, all of these, the social media that you can go out to advertise, to sell your items. That's the only way to go now. And so, you know, I agree with you and I understand what you're saying, but, you know, for us, looking at selling, it's strictly to social media now. And you have to, for the first time, Sydney and I are looking at doing just auctions online, not having a live auction in the gallery anymore. Because there are certain things, we picked up an estate recently, there's a collection of Yadros, okay? You know, I know people that take those out, use them for target practice, because they just, nobody wants them in this area. But there still are people around the country that do. And so by doing just an online auction, you can reach out to those people, not in eBay or anything like that. I won't even get into my thoughts about eBay. But some people do very, very well on eBay, but they burned me 3 times and it cost me thousands of dollars, and I will never use eBay again as long as I live. But, you know, this is hard. This truly is. I think all of us that are in this business are working twice as hard to make half the money, because this stuff just isn't out there and there aren't buyers out there anymore like there used to be. The average age of the dealer collector is between 60 and 90. There are very few young people who are collectors anymore. I have a good friend of mine who comes to the auctions all the time. He did the New Hampshire show. And he said one of his best collectors came in a wheelchair this time, bought absolutely nothing from him, and all of his friends that were at the show left with the same amount of stuff that they went with. I know people who, another friend of mine has a dealer friend up 2 hours north up on the coast, and he said to me his numbers are off 20% from last year. I will tell you, I am very blessed, and I will say blessed, that by the end of this year, our numbers will be up about 300%. And it's because of trying to find the rare, unique, and the unusual, and reaching out to the world, because that's the only way we can do it. I was talking about the Levi's jeans we just sold, and I've got a client who's, I don't know if anybody overheard me or not, but that's coming in, they're flying in from Idaho with a collection of 1910s and 1920s Levi's in Lee's that her grandmother used to have a store. And this was the leftover inventory that still has the tags on it. Okay, now I'm talking, you know, there's one jacket there I should be able to get somewhere between 30 and 50,000 for. I have the connections in Japan, I have the connections in Malaysia, so I'm able to then reach out and do auctions and reach out to these people and say, hey, this is what we've got. Actually, an interesting story is when we first brought those Levi's back from Arizona, I had them at auction. And we had an online auction going at the same time, so people could bid all over the world. And halfway through, and about 30 minutes before we were going to bring the jeans up, the company we were using for online bidding, their server crashed. What do you do? We've advertised this worldwide. We've got people worldwide that want to bid. What do? Do you just keep auctioning? I pulled them from the auction. You know, we needed the international bidders to buy it, and we couldn't do it. It was frustrating. They didn't do anything to compensate us. They couldn't, obviously. You know, and that's one of the downfalls of technology. Because if I've got using an online server out of New York, and all of a sudden their building power goes off, and their server's not working, what do? You know? And maybe that's a way for us all to get back to the way it used to be, is we need a severe depression in this country. God, I don't pray for that, but, you know, to get people back to basics and to understand what it's gonna take to build a piece of furniture. And, you know, it's sad, because your collection, my collection, and anybody else who's got a collection here, you scratch your head, you know? So, but there's still a good buys out there if you're looking, and as you know, even when we do go to auctions from time to time, There are people that come up to us and approach us about selling things through the gallery. And right now I've got 2 Norman Rockwell paintings hanging in the gallery. And even good artwork, I will tell you, I took a painting to Germany about 5 years ago. I appraised the painting about 8 years ago for approximately $500,000. And we ended up selling it for the client, and it brought $165,000. I mean, the market has dropped that much. Even good, say, let's say a Pablo Picasso, it used to bring 20 to 30 million. If that comes up at market now, probably will bring somewhere between 10 and 15 million. Even now, unless it's the best of the best, rare, unique, and unusual. And if it's been on the market before, it's soft. It's amazing how soft it is. So, because I track a lot of that in order to see where art, because I do a great deal with artwork. That's one of my passions, is I love art. I love, it can put you in a place that you just can't imagine. 150 years ago, standing there looking at a D.D. Coombs painting, and the Indian face there that I don't know if anybody here ever remembers it at all. I haven't been here that long, but, ma'am?
I was just thinking of D.D. Coombs, and you said his name, and I can't believe it, because my father has a bunch of D.D. Coombs.
It what? I'm sorry.
My father has a bunch of D.D. Coombs.
Is that right?
So,
Yeah.
I can't believe you mentioned his name.
Yeah, well, it's funny because that painting is by D.D. Coombs, and that's why I brought him up. And, it just, but you can be standing right now on the shore of the Androscoggin River 120, 130 years ago and see what it looked like. I'm curious though, does anybody remember the Indian? The face? Does anybody know about the face? You remember the Indian?
Sure.
Do you? Because I've only been here 9 years.
Postcard images of it.
Yes.
What's that?
Yeah, the Indian disappeared during blasting, I think, in the 1870s.
I think it was the 1920s.
Was it the 20s?
Okay, yeah, I didn't know when it was lost, I just knew that it used to be there and it's not anymore, so, but I wasn't sure when it lost, but now I know, so. So it's an interesting time, it's something that I say to people, if you like antiques, buy, because you're never gonna find a market like this ever again. This is the way it's gonna be for a while. What's wild to me is you look at the IKEA, you look at all this new stuff, and you look at an antique piece of furniture, and you shake your head because you go, that antique piece of furniture is gonna be around for another 100 years, at least. Is that IKEA gonna be around another 100 years? The quality of the furniture made 150, 200 years ago, good period. I look at this table, every time I come in here, I look at that table here, the card table, and it's amazing. And forgive me, but I don't think the kids nowadays have the taste. They just don't. It doesn't matter. They don't know what taste is. So far as antiques and furniture. Mid-century modern, that's another one that's still good designer mid-century modern is doing well. I've got 5 cabinets I have to pick up next week that are coming into the gallery. And if you've got good designer stuff with big names on it, it will still bring a premium. But like arts and crafts furniture, you get the best of arts and crafts furniture. There's still a lot of people that buy that. But everything else is really soft. Strange. But any questions? I'm sorry. Anybody have any thoughts? Yes.
The thing that I've heard the most about, kids nowadays is if they can't fit it in their car,
Right?
they don't want it.
Right?
So they're gonna move from Auburn to New York City.
And that,
Whatever they can put in their car.
Right?
So they're not interested in any big antique furniture or bric-a-brac or anything.
Yeah. Because they now, we've been a transient society. I literally have lived from San Diego to Michigan to Florida to Rhode Island to Maine. We're transient. We move so quickly, and now these kids, I hear all the time that they take a job and they go, well, I'm just going to be here for a year or two before I go on to something else, and that's the way they are. And I have to shake my head and go, there's no roots. They don't put down roots anymore. So it'll be interesting. Another part of this business that I find extremely interesting is silver and gold. 95% of the silver and gold that we bring in goes out by weight. Basically, it's scrapped. Unless you get something really good, you get a good, you know, early Gorham set or Tiffany set or an S. Kirk and Son, Baltimore Rose or something that's better than average. The average tolt silverware that comes in, the market's at what, $14.73 today for silver. So you figure, okay, this is a percentage and this is what you can sell it at the refiners for. Same way with gold. I mean, most gold rings that come in, gold, I have seen some absolutely amazing gold pocket watches that I look at where the antique value is on it now and where the gold value is. And I've had people literally take it and pull the watch mechanism out of it and sell the case, because the case is worth more than the watch is. Not in all instances, but a good majority of the time. Yes?
I just gotta tell you this because it's really comical. We had over the years, my wife was a big collector of watches.
Right?
Just junk watches, you know, Mickey Mouse and
Right?
all these things, right? She had, I don't know how many. And so we were cleaning out and gonna be moving, and so I said, why don't we get on, because the money's up on gold, maybe there's some gold in these things.
Right?
When we took it down, we were amazed at what we had.
Is that
And
right?
we never even knew it. And we sold it right up here on Center Street, didn't we?
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, and that's most of, because I know the people up at Republic Jewelry. You know, I talk to Dan and Dan all the time, and because we still do a lot with coins. And it's amazing that just how much comes in, and they, you know, you can't sell it by antique value, you sell it by gold value. Now, again, if you've got a good, rare, unique, and unusual, you've got a very early Mickey Mouse watch, it has more value than,
Yeah.
the other thing that I
I
find.
said Mickey Mouse because she collects them too.
Is that right? Okay. The other thing that I find is interesting is if you have a 1976 Star Wars figure in the original box, I can get you thousands. You want an 1890s pocket watch, nobody wants it. But give me a Star Wars figure in the original box from 76, and you just shake your head, you go, things like Barbie. What you find is the generations with cars, you know, Model Ts and Model As, the prices on them have dropped like antique furniture has. But if you got a muscle car, you know, you get a 67 Camaro or a 69 Camaro Z28 with a 404, I mean, it'll go through the roof. You get, if it's the right car, it can be $100,000 or more. But nobody wants a Model A anymore. And as that generation that used those vehicles, so people want what they grew up with. So you're also seeing that affect the market. So it's interesting. It really is. I hate to say it, but I really do think this is the new normal. I don't think it's going to change. And I'm not sure, you know, all we can do is just keep looking for the best stuff and try to, you know, keep helping our clients the best as we can, which is what we do. And just keep moving forward. So, any other questions? Any thoughts? Yes, Mark?
What's the, I don't understand why something with a box makes that much difference. What's the thing with the coming in a box?
Because most of the boxes were, it's like Lionel trains. If you get a 1930s Lionel train, that's one thing. But most of the boxes were thrown away. So the box is actually going to be rarer than the train itself. And it's the same way with the Star Wars figures. To find one in the original box is very unusual. Because everybody took the toy out and played with it. Christmas morning, what'd you do? It went in the fireplace or it went to the garbage the next day. So to find it in that original box, you'll get a premium for it. And that's in everything. Honestly, that's, we actually did an appraisal event, what, 2 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago over in Freeport. And the gentleman came in with a doll, Topo Gigio.
Oh.
And, you know, the doll itself is probably $10, $20, but it was in the original box. Made it worth $75 to $100. So you can keep those.
Yeah.
So, yes.
How about an Urkel in a box?
My suggestion to you is to hold on to that for another 20 or 30 years and see what happens. Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Those, like the 1800s cross stitch used to be, samplers used to be very valuable. Is there still value for those?
There is some value in those. Again, the rare, the unique, the unusual, the better the quality. That's the other thing, is the better the quality of the item. Things that are kept in pristine condition will bring a premium. Excuse me. Anything that's damaged right now, chipped, cracked, torn, whatever, nobody wants it. They just won't buy it. They won't pay anything for them anymore.
So it sounds like you have a lot of specialty channels. If somebody has something kind of unique, you know where to go, you know where to take it.
Honestly, that's one of the advantages that I've had with the Antiques Roadshow, is I know all of the specialists around the country who are on the show with me. So if I get a piece of Southwest Native American pottery, I pick up the phone and call a friend of mine down in Texas and say, hey, can I shoot you a picture? And he's, yeah, send him down a picture, tell me exactly what it is, because that's the one thing I will tell you right now, like 40 plus years of doing this, I learn every day how little I know. Because you're always learning something. You're always seeing something that you've never seen before, especially when I do the appraisal events around the country. You'll always see something come in. And that's actually one of the fun things for me also, is that you get that one-of-a-kind item that was made back in 1870 for a specific use. And somebody walks in with it and goes, do you know what this was for? And I look at it and go, no, I don't. I have no idea. You can kind of look at it and say, well, I think it might be for this or for that. But it was a one-of-a-kind item that was made because they had to make do. They had to learn how to, they wanted a specific thing they were doing, so what do? And to me, that's fun because I always get to see things that I would never see again, probably. So, you had a question?
Well, I had, my parents' friend bought a '67 Galaxy,
Okay.
and at the time, if you bought a new car, you got a model Mustang that had working lights, it was battery powered, and it came in a box that was shaped like a garage, so you could open the end of the box, pull it out, put it back in the garage. I hung on to that for about 15 years, and I made the mistake of letting my nephews play with it. Oops.
And that's why the boxes are so important now. It's true. It's like Matchbox cars. You get a good early Matchbox car, and if it's in the original box, people will pay 10, 20, 30 times what they will for the Matchbox itself. Just because of that particular reason. They play with it, they destroy the box, so it's fun. It's fun to find those rare, unique pieces out there. So, but we always are looking to help people. Yes, ma'am.
Who got the big Levi's? Who bought that big pair?
Actually, it was a gentleman in Southeast Asia. I started to tell the story before. It was kind of interesting because we've all had those emails that come in saying, I want to give you money.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, the Prince of Sahib is going to send me, yeah, of course you are. And he emailed me back and forth for the better part of a week saying, no, I really want to buy those jeans. And it was funny because he sent two of his people that worked for him from Southeast Asia to New York City. And they drove up from New York because being a small bank, Lisbon small bank, you can't wire internationally. And they didn't have enough connections to wire internationally. So they turned around and I said to them, yeah, if you're gonna pay me through cash.
Oh, no.
And these two guys showed up. What was interesting, because I have a friend of mine who's a lieutenant of the police department, and I have another friend of mine who's about 6'3". He's just big. And I said to him, these guys are gonna be, well, he said to me, I'll be there Tuesday at 10 a.m. All right, now what do I do? All right, I called the lieutenant, I called this friend of mine, and I said, what are you guys doing Tuesday morning about 9:30 for about an hour? And both of them carry. So, because I have no idea who these people coming through the door, So I turn around and they're sitting over in the corner and they're talking or whatever. And the two guys that came in, I should have taken a picture of them because they were Southeast Asian. But the one guy came in, you remember 007, Odd Job, with a bowler hat? one of them looked just like our job. And I'm like, oh boy, what am I gonna do here? So we turned around and we just got laughing and, yeah, okay. And they turned those jeans inside out, upside down. They took pictures of them. They took about 30 or 40 pictures. Because they're so rare, they didn't expect them to be right. And they were from the 1890s. They were absolutely right. They were huge. They said, okay, we're gonna go outside and talk. Well, they sent all the pictures to this guy that wanted to buy them. And they said, we'll be back in shortly. I said, all right. So we're all just sitting there talking, and all of a sudden he turns around and one guy comes walking in, and Odd Job goes to the car. And the next thing you know is he walks in with a backpack, and he says, here you go. And I'm like, yeah, right. I open it up and I went, holy crap. I mean, literally, it's like, you should have seen the bank when I showed up at the Lisbon Credit Union. I went, we need a private office. And they're like, for what? Because I need to make a deposit. Yeah, right. What do you need? And I opened up and they went, oh yeah, okay, let's go over here, you know. You should have seen them at the credit union. It was hysterical, it really was. And it took them about 15 minutes to count it all out and make sure that it was all right. But they paid me, I gave them a receipt. And because they didn't have the cash, they couldn't fly with that amount of cash. So they said, where's the nearest airport? And I said, Portland. They flew down, or drove down to Portland, turned in their rental car, and flew back to New York and flew back to Southeast Asia with the jeans. So that's where they're at. They were huge. They were, I don't know if anybody read the article, but they were like 44 waist, 36 or 38-inch inseam. This guy was an absolute, if you see pictures of him, he was absolutely a mountain of a man. The only thing that I say is that the reference that I use is this man was like John Wayne of the Old West. Because he was from the 1860s, 1870s. He helped found Tucson. He had a grist mill there. He literally, in one of his trips, because of his dry goods store, he went to San Diego and Los Angeles by wagon train. And on one of the wagon trains coming back, he got attacked. And he literally was shot with 2 or 3 arrows and a bullet. And he kept going and got the wagon train back. And he just came back and he just kept going. And, you know, I mean, this guy was just truly the John Wayne of the Old West. But man, that guy was huge. It was absolutely huge. If those jeans had been a size 32, would say a 32-inch or 33-inch inseam, I probably could have got somewhere between 125 and 150,000 for them. Because they were that rare. Junk jeans I've seen sell for 70 or 80 that they pulled out of a mine that are all tore up. Because if they're 19th century, you just don't find them.
So
and that's why a lot of people search mines out there.
the condition of these jeans is pretty good?
The condition of the jeans that I sold,
Yeah.
they were never worn.
Oh.
They were the only pair, we sold the only pair known of 19th century Levi's jeans that were just like the day they were made.
And you didn't auction, you just sold.
I tried to, we were gonna do the auction, but it went down. And so what happened is, I had so many people that were trying they were trying to buy them privately from me, but because the auction went down, they wanted to buy them for 10,000, 20,000. Levi's offered 50,000, and I said, no, we're not gonna do that. And literally I got to the point where I got so many other things going on, they went back in one of the safes, and they sat there until this guy got a hold of me. Because I was like, you know, I know it's money in the bank, it's just a question of the timing and everything else. And next thing you know, I got an email. We want to send you money. Oh yeah, right. So, but and that's why I'm anxious to see these jeans. This woman and her dad are literally flying in from Idaho on the 6th of November to drop them off and flying back on the 7th. Because how do you ship them? Do you dare put them in a box to send them back? You're better off to fly back with them. You know, it was like the painting that I took to Germany. You know what it's like to go through customs with a painting that's $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, and you're carrying it with you, and you can't carry it on the plane because it was like this. So you got to put it through, you know, put it in a box, put it through, and on top of everything else, because it was a German artist, you have to get basically a passport for it. So I had to apply for what's called a carnet, and you get the carnet for the piece, and it goes over to the German. Oh, it's not just you jump in a plane and fly over. You literally have to go through all these steps to make sure that you can get the right paperwork. So when I go through customs, Because if you don't do that, in some European countries, they can confiscate it and you can't get it back. So you have to be very, very careful, so.
Do you insure something like that?
We did have insurance on it while I was traveling. My insurance, my business insurance, covers me for millions of dollars no matter what I'm transporting. So I always have that, and I made sure that if we had a special rider put on it for going internationally. So yeah, we had a large amount of insurance on it.
And see, baggage handlers, how they take care of things.
Oh, yeah, you know, you wait to see the box come out crushed, you know, and you go, oh man. But everything went fine, it went smooth, and it was literally, I flew over one day, met with the woman the next afternoon, went back to Frankfurt to fly home that night, and flew red-eye back. I mean, it literally was like a 2.5-day trip. So, but, because I'm not gonna leave it in the room.
No.
I'm not gonna walk out and leave it in the room and go, yeah, I'm gonna go sightseeing. Well, if somebody else is paying it that's worth that kind of money. Nah, so that's why honestly, I really have been blessed with some of the things that have happened in my life, some of the things that I've been able to do, you know, like being called as an expert witness. It just, that to me is, you know, it's still humbling, you know.
If somebody wanted to start a collection, a new collection, what would you recommend it be?
Star Wars.
Star Wars, yeah, right. Star Wars figures.
In a box, right?
You know,
Not spittoons.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it's,
Oh, what'd you say?
I said not spittoons.
Not spittoons, no. You know, it's interesting because of the fact that the one thing that I think is always going to hold its value, as long as it's in good shape, is good coins. I think that there's always going to be investors, even 20, 30, 40-year-old investors, that are always going to be looking for good investment. So if you collect coins, and the good thing with coins is if you have a coin that's, let's say, worth $500, but it's medium grade, let's say, and you can always trade up. So you can always go out and find that better coin, sell this one, get your money back, and put it towards this, and continue to build your collection that way. I always thought that was a good investment, and I still do. But you've got to know what you're doing, because a polished coin, as opposed to a coin that looks like it's pristine, original, they're very close, and unless you know the difference, you can take advantage of it. I've seen that happen to people, so you have to be careful. You know, can you think of anything at all that we've talked about in the last 6 months that would be, this is my girlfriend Cindy, we travel a lot, we do appraisal events a lot, and I'm trying to think of anything that we can, yes sir?
How about Civil War artifacts, collecting?
Unless they're rare, unique, and unusual. I know a general Civil War sword right now, just a typical Civil War sword that used to bring, let's say, $500 to $800, bringing $2 to $4, $250 to $350, somewhere in that area. They're not as strong as they used to be. Again, you're in a situation where the next generation doesn't want them. They don't know anything about them. Good revolutionary pieces. But again, if you get it extremely rare, I looked at a sword not long ago, actually over in Sabatis, and it was a well-known Civil War general sword. And they thought because it was a Civil War general, this is going to be great. The problem was it was presented to him after the Civil War. It wasn't used during the war. It was just, and it was nice, but you want the ones that are used during the war. Even firearms. I will tell you right now, you look at good firearms. We have a firearms auction once a year, and Model 94 Winchesters that used to bring $600, $700, $800. The average 30 caliber Model 94 Winchester, I had a saddle ring carbine come in yesterday. I looked at the guy and I went $300 to $500, because that's where the market is right now. Unless it's pristine. Again, I go back to what my comment was before. If it's in pristine condition, almost unused condition, now you're going to get a premium for it. People will pay to get the best of the best, much like they will with a coin. They'll pay to get the best of the best. But the average stuff, there's so much of it out there, you can still find. I had a beautiful Civil War cribbage board. This estate that had the Yadros. yeah, I drove figurines, you know, okay, I don't usually deal with them, but we said we'd take them because it was such a large collection, we're gonna do an online auction. He comes walking out to me, and he says, do you do anything with cribbage boards? Yeah, it depends on the cribbage board. And he hands me a cribbage board made out of marble that's all Civil War decorations on it. It's got a general in the middle, it's got cannons down here, it's got flags at the top. You don't find those. That probably will bring somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000. If it wasn't Civil War related, 25 bucks. But again, it's rare, unique, and unusual. Yes?
How about people maybe in their 30s, 40s now, looking back to the beginning of the computer age, you know, like early Apple computers or literature about them or that sort of thing?
That sort of thing, it is very specialized. It's like some of the early games. There's some early TV games, you know, the electronic games and everything else. Some of those, and I don't get involved with them, so I don't know personally. I've only read that some of those can be worth a ton of money for the right game, for the right electronics, for the, I mean, the first Apple computer that sold at auction for several $100,000, I think it was, or something. It was some astronomical amount of money. Those type of things, yes, you're right. But it's not my forte. I don't know it well enough to really, but you're absolutely right. If you find early, because there's still are games from the 70s, early, you know, late 60s, early 70s, where people will, they've had them in their house forever, and they don't know what they got. So yes, you're absolutely right. Yes?
Antiques Roadshow, I know you've been on for, I think, 11 years.
Right.
And I know that it's a show and they need to make it as, you know, high interest as possible. Right. And so they'll do the close-up, and we're all cheering this lady who brought in her, you know, grandmother's bedspread, which turns out to be worth a fortune. I'm just wondering, what do we not see? What's backstage like that you could share with us that just doesn't make it to the air?
Right. I'll give you the average day on the Antiques Roadshow. We're on the floor at 7:30 in the morning. They start letting people in usually by 8 o'clock. There's usually about 80 some odd appraisers that are there. We all have specialties. They allow in 6,500 people, and everybody's allowed 2 items. So 80 plus appraisers are appraising 13,000 items in the course of one day. There's times we've been done at 5 o'clock, there's times I've been there till 7, 8 o'clock at night. 99% of what you see is grandma's attic. It's nice, it's interesting, it's, you know, what happens is somebody brings something to my table. I'm trying to think of something that was about John Wayne's saddle. Okay, the woman came to me at my table with Bat Jack Productions. Back up a little bit. When John Wayne went out on his own to produce movies, he produced had a production company called Bat Jack Productions. And what happened is this woman's father used to be the chef for Bat Jack Productions. So what happened is this woman's father got the saddle from John Wayne, and it was marked Bat Jack Productions. So what happens is she comes to my table, she tells me about it, and this is what happens with all the appraisers. She tells one of the appraisers or myself about it, and she says, okay, this is where it came from. You don't say anything back. You try to draw as much information as you can from that person. If you think it's worth going to air, you call the producer over. Now, because of 80 people all wanting to get on air, because the Antiques Roadshow doesn't pay for our flights, they don't pay for our hotels, they don't pay for our meals, they don't pay us even to do this show. It all is strictly done because we want PR. And honestly, after 11 years of doing it, it's opened up amazing amount of doors for me. And I know it has for other auctioneers as well and dealers. So what you find is now, because of that, you've got 80 appraisers who are looking to have somebody bring something to their table to go on air. As soon as they do, they call the producer over. So it can take up to 2 hours to have the producer come over to you. So what happens, you know how you see it, it's got the screen behind it that says fine art or whatever. So what you do is you say, excuse me, but you know, I really think this might be good on air. I'd like to call the producer over. And if they say yes. I've had people say no, but if they say yes, most people want to try to get on air. So what they do is we take them and we guide them in back of the screen and said, as soon as the producer comes over, we'll be in touch with you. It could take up to 2 hours. Okay. The producer finally comes over, we look at the producer and say, this is what I know about this piece. Now, we don't ever share value with the people at all. You don't do any of that up front. So what you do is you talk to the producer and you say, listen, this is what I think it's worth. This is the story behind it. This is what we can do, and this is why I think it would be interesting. Because the one thing with the Antiques Roadshow, it doesn't always have to do with value. The very first piece that I ever did, I did in Toronto back in 1999 or 2000. And all it was a ship and a bottle. Big deal. But it was done by a German POW who was in a POW camp in Canada. It wasn't about the value. It was only like $600, $600. But it was the history behind it. And that's one of the things I liked about the Antiques Roadshow. It wasn't always money, 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 money. It's a lot about the history. So we talked to the producer. If she felt that it was, well, that's the last one, I was last there, it was a woman, but it used to be a man. But you talk to them and they say, yeah, okay, this could be interesting. So now what they do is they go over and they talk to the people who brought the piece in. And when they take a look at it, they talk to them and they try to draw them out even more. Find out more, because believe it or not, you could never think this would ever happen, but there are people that bring things in, they already know everything about it, but they're trying to get it on air, because if they get it on air, they can say this was on the Antiques Roadshow and now it's worth more. And so the producers are usually really good at drawing them out and trying to find out more about it. And so what you find is they talk to them, and if they feel, yeah, this really is good, then they immediately take them into another part of the building where we're at, and what they call the green room. And they sit back there, and in the meantime, they watch all of the filmings that are going on, because there's 3 tables in the center of what you see. There's 3 tables set up to film, and as soon as this one's done, they immediately move back over to this one, and this one's ready to go. And then when this one's done, it goes back over. I mean, it goes crazy. And so that's kind of what happens with the show and how it works. And so we get, if we have to do any research, typically we get about 5 minutes before we go on air. Everything is filmed. It really is the first reality television show. It was started back in 1997. It really is, because what you see with it is they're filming it as it happens. And it's amazing. And I will tell you, ladies, the first time I went on air, and it was first thing in the morning, and they did my makeup, and I had to wear that makeup all day long. God bless y'all. That's all I gotta say. It's the worst. I don't know, guys, I don't know if you've ever put on makeup or had to put on makeup at all, but there's been times I've been filmed 2 or 3 times. So they put on makeup first thing in the morning, and you film. And the next thing you know, at noontime, you got something else you're gonna film. So they do a touch-up. And at the end of the day, you got another one. So they do another touch-up. I can't wait to get back to the hotel room and wash my face. That's awful. God bless you guys. That's all I gotta say. It's awful. But it's hard to describe. It's the best organized cast I've ever seen in my life, because they literally will control 13,000 people. I've had some great things happen. I've been able to take a lot of things on air. What's interesting is a lot of what you see from my reruns, they don't have probably 10 or 20% of what I originally did, because the producer and I didn't really see eye to eye, and that's part of the reason why I didn't go back. They wouldn't put up all my stuff for me. They'll keep me on the website, but they won't put it up for me. So that's okay. It doesn't matter. I don't need that. I don't have an ego. I need to have all my stuff up. You'd be surprised at how many of those guys, if you can't tell, how many of those guys that get filmed, they've got this huge ego. They just, I would never talk on record, because I don't know if this is being filmed or not, but yeah, it's interesting. So that's kind of how the show goes, and that's what happens. But literally, they film all day long. It used to be for 2 one-hour shows. And so you get 20, 30 items per show that's on. So literally of the 13,000 items that come in, you might get 50 or 60 that make it to television. So it's interesting. Yes?
always makes me nervous watching that program. In your experience, not you, but other appraisers, they turn over a Lalique vase and it breaks, they drop it. Has that ever happened?
They say that again.
In the Antiques Roadshow.
Right.
Not you, but other appraisers, they turn over an expensive vase.
Right.
And it breaks.
I actually had that. I came over a table one time. Literally, I came over to the table because the woman had a lamp. She had it set on the table, and I went to reach up and I hit it, and it was about a $5,000 lamp, and I went over to the table and caught it. I mean, I literally, I was like, you know, you can feel the blood rush from your body. It just, does it happen? Yeah, I mean, accidents happen. What are you gonna say? It does. But I will tell you, the Antiques Roadshow is amazing. It really doesn't happen. I think in the 11 years, I can think of maybe 2 or 3 incidences that have happened. Where you hear that more than anything else is when people are standing in line coming in, and all of a sudden you hear crash. Now you've got, let's say, 2,000 people waiting in line, and you hear crash. You've never heard 2,000 people go quiet in all your life like you're doing that, and you hear this about 3 seconds of dead silence, and you hear, ooh, and then it's back to normal, you know. So, but it doesn't. Believe it or not, it really doesn't happen that often. The worst, I will tell you, this is one of the things that I will about the Antiques Roadshow that I will remember for the rest of my life. I dealt with a lot of great people. There was a woman in her late 70s who made it to my table. We talked for about 10 minutes, told her about her items, and she said she had she always just wanted to come to the Antiques Roadshow. She finally got tickets, and she made it, and we no sooner finished talking and she collapsed on the floor. I called the security. The security was there literally within 30 seconds. They had her in an ambulance within 2 minutes. And she died later that night. And I just, to this day, it gives me goosebumps because all she wanted to go to the Antiques Roadshow when she made it, and she died. I just, well, yeah, but you know, on my side of the table, you're looking down going, oh damn. You know, what am I gonna do? You know, but I will tell you, that's the other thing, is the security at the Antiques Roadshow is amazing. They have, the gentleman that runs the security used to be with the New York City Police Department. And if you find out you've got an item that's worth a lot of money, you will have an escort back to your car. One of the funniest things that happened going back to firearms, when I first started, they didn't have much for security. So a woman brought in this gun, her husband had passed away, and they sat down at the table and they went, well, let's take a look at it. And they went, and out flies a bullet. The thing was still loaded. You know, somebody could have been shot. I'll never forget that we were at the Jacob Javits Center in New York City for one of the road shows. And all of a sudden, everything stopped. What's going on? They had to call the fire department. A gentleman come walking in with a case of black powder and antique tins. What do you do with 20 pounds of black powder? Heck, if you set it off, we'd all, the Javits Center would have been gone. I mean, it just literally, it was like, literally everything stopped for about 15 minutes. They called the fire department in, it was just, those are some of the things that happen. You just kind of go, but people don't think about it. They look at this antique tin, yeah, it's got black powder in it, but it's a nice antique black powder tin. They can be worth some money. Yeah, but you can blow up the whole building, but they didn't think of that. So the woman that brought in the gun. So now they have people that, as people come through the front door, if they've got a gun, they check the weapon and they lock it. So that way, there's no way that anybody, you know, nothing could ever happen. So.
Now, have you ever, or can you, as an appraiser, buy something if somebody is interested in selling it?
Absolutely not.
No?
Absolutely not. That's the other thing I liked about the Antiques Roadshow. You cannot solicit anyone to even put it into your auction. You can't do it. If they want to deal with you, we leave all of our business cards near the exit. And people can go and take our business cards and contact us later. There have been dealers and auctioneers who tried to solicit,
Yeah.
And I've seen the producer literally walk up to them at their table and say, "Can you come here for a second?" And ask for it on time, and then wipe it off the website.
Well, I heard it on there one night. I can't remember who it was, but I thought that's what stuck in my head. It's like, he just told her if she was interested in selling it, he'd be interested in buying it. And I'm going, is that ethical?
They usually don't do that. Now, the only thing I will say to you is if it's one of the twins
Yeah,
that said it,
yeah.
they have much more leeway than the rest of us did for some reason. And that was part of the reason why I left. Because everybody wasn't held to the same standards. So, yeah, if they said something like that, they're not supposed to, and for them to even have that on air really
Yeah,
surprises
that
me.
surprised me.
Yeah. Somebody had, yes?
I've been involved in the antiques business for more than half of my life.
Right.
And I have been fortunate enough to have been able to see what something was worth 20 years ago
Right.
and what it's worth today.
Right.
And never was in the position of buying the best of the best.
Right.
But it seems to me that now, if you have a passion for something, is a terrific time to
Right.
buy for your own pleasure.
Right.
You know, at one point in time, I bought for investment. Oh, that
Right.
stuff all lost money.
Yeah.
But now, it's a great time that if you have an interest in something or other, to buy it. And that's one of the things I like.
Right.
I mean, we've talked about the negative side
Right.
of the environment,
Oh.
the retail environment. The other side is it's a great time
To
if
buy.
you love something to buy it.
Absolutely, and that's what I said before, is if you've got money and you like antiques, now's the time to buy it. When I talk about the best of the best, I talk about the best of what you can afford.
Mm.
If you have $200 in your bank account that you want to spend on something, buy the best you can buy for that $200. But if you find one 2 years from now that's $300, and now you've got the extra $100 in your bank account, sell this one hopefully for $225 and buy up. And continue to buy up till you can get the best of the best. That's the best way to do it, because the average things are always gonna have average prices. So, no, you're right, it's a great time to buy, it truly is. Yes, ma'am, you had a question?
I was wondering with people like myself who have elderly parents.
Right.
And they have furniture and dishes and whatnot. What do you suggest that we're going to do with this stuff then if nobody wants it? What do we do? What do we throw it out? I mean, what do we do with this
No,
stuff?
well, believe it or not, I have been to estates where the kids have just taken it all and put it in dumpster. They hire a dumpster and they throw it all out into the dumpster and off it goes. What I say to people is call us. We went out on an estate call this morning. The woman actually wanted us to do an insurance appraisal. She had one done 15 years ago. I looked at her and I said, you don't want to pay me to do an insurance appraisal with the way the prices have dropped. But we were able to say to her, this is what you can do. This is a way to sell it. I will always, if I can't help them with it, I will always try to find them an avenue where they can possibly sell it. And so I always say to people, just call me. We'll come out, we'll take a look for you. If it's something we have to spend a day with you or an afternoon with you, we do charge by the hour. But if it's something we just do kind of a cursory walkthrough with you, we don't generally charge for that. And we can at least point you in a direction, if nothing else. But it's, again, if it's rare, unique, and unusual, it'll bring decent money. If it's the average stuff, the average china, the average quilt, that stuff is just, it's gonna take some time to sell it. So, but you can get your money. Oh, he's rushing me out the door. Wait, one more question. Somebody had a question. Oh, and Mert's got one too. Go ahead.
We hear about people who have an antique that has been ruined by varnishing or painting or
Right.
abrasive polishing. What kinds of things do you recommend if you find something that looks like it needs to be worked on, but you would ruin it if you did?
Bert, that really comes down to what I usually tell people is anybody pre-Civil War, because it was around the Civil War period they started to mass produce. So anything that's post-Civil War, feel free to do anything you want with it. It doesn't matter. Matter of fact, and you'll probably know this, and is most of the people that come to us and buy oak and Victorian furniture, it'll sell better if it's painted. They'll paint it white. They'll paint it a color, and it'll go into a shop. The woman that's got the little shop next to me, she does it all the time. And I watch stuff going out the door for 4 or 5 times what she paid for it, because it's got a coat of white paint on it. You shake your head. Early American furniture, I would say to you, take a look at it. If it's going to help the piece by doing the restoration and bringing it back, then I would say go ahead. If it doesn't need a heavy restoration, but maybe just a good cleaning, whatever, then do that. But be really careful with any of the early furniture.